John Tartaglia, 15 seconds to curtain, John.
Oh, I guess I should put on some pants. Striped ones or the regular ones? I'll figure it out.
Welcome to 15 Seconds to Curtain, a Muppet fan podcast presented by ToughPigs.com. This is the podcast where Muppet fans talk with notable Muppet fans about, what else? The Muppets. Full disclosure, the audio quality of today's interview is a little touch and go, but rest assured, the issue is on our end and not with your listening device. Thankfully, the audio from our special guest is much clearer than my own. Speaking of which, our guest today is a Muppet performer who's worked with Sesame Street since his teenage years. He starred in the smash Broadway hit Avenue Q and created the Henson Company series Splash and Bubbles. Recently, he produced, wrote, performed, and handled a dozen other jobs for the surprise hit of the year, Fraggle Rock, Rock On. We are extremely proud to welcome John Tartaglia to the podcast.
Welcome. Hi, everybody. Good to see you.
Thanks so much for doing this.
It is so my pleasure. I'm excited to finally sit down with you guys.
Great. We have a lot to talk about, specifically about Fraggle Rock. But before we get into that, I want to know, John Tartaglia, what do you love about the Muppets?
Oh, gosh. You know what? I think that the first thing that comes to mind is the spirit of everyone belongs. You know, no matter how weird you are, no matter how wacky you are, no matter how bizarre your act is, whatever it is that who and what you are, you have a place and you belong and you're part of this family. I think I love that. I've always loved that about the Muppets.
That's a great answer. And that totally fits with every franchise underneath the Henson Muppet Sesame brand.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. They're all like a weird collection of misfits. And
yeah, I think that's why I always loved it. I think it was like, you're right, like Fraggle Rock, Sesame Street, Muppets, whatever you loved the most growing up, like I think they all are based on these wacky personalities. And I think when you grow up, feeling in any way different, no matter what your background is, I think you are searching for that place where you want to feel like you belong. And I think that the Muppets just kind of instantly say, you belong here, you're welcome here, which I think it's not an exclusive team or exclusive group. It's open to everybody.
Absolutely. I love that. That's a great answer. So we got to talk about Fraggle Rock. There's so many Fraggle Rock questions I have for you. You've probably been just drowning in Fraggles the last few months. Is that accurate?
It is. I mean, I don't know if that's if I've ever thought of that way of putting it before. I'm buried in buried in the rock maybe, or I'm trying to think of I don't know, covered by doozers. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a good
all the above. Yeah. All right. Well,
all the above. Yeah.
Let's start talking about let's talk about Fraggle Rock, Rock On, the short form series that was on Apple TV, still is on Apple TV.
Yes.
Go watch it now.
Yes.
How did it come to be? Like, was it your pitch? Was it something that came to you from Henson?
So we were actually talking with Apple about how to bring the Fraggles back. That was something that has been in the talks for a while. And when the pandemic happened, the kind of backstory is that I had the Fraggle puppets in my office at Henson for another something we were working on. And we shut down the lot very quickly, just like, across the country. It was like almost no notice. It was like, go home, goodbye. And I called Hallie Stanford, our amazing executive producer and head of television. And I was leaving the lot and I said, I just feel weird leaving the Fraggles in my office. I was like, who knows how long it's going to be. And there was just something in my gut that said I should bring them home. Put aside the fact that I'm the biggest Fraggle nerd in the world, and to me, these puppets are like, the holy grail. I was like, I got very protective of them, but I was like, there's just something inside me that says I should bring them home. So she was like, yeah, bring them home. So I brought them home, and then not even like 2 weeks later, I find out that Apple gave a call, and Apple asked if we could think about making some shorts, if we'd be interested in taking the Fraggle characters, making some shorts, to really kind of bring some joy and some relief to the families during the pandemic, not knowing that I had the puppets at home and not knowing that I happened to have a blue screen and a green screen at home. And so Hallie called the team and we all got on the phone and said, can we do this? And all of a sudden we started realizing we can do this. And so it really was an amazing, I kind of believe in things happen the way they're supposed to. It was a meant to be thing. Actually, you know, I think Karen Prell, or I can't remember if it was Karen or Dave, who said like it really feels a very Fraggly thing, that, you know, that it just like the universe worked itself out. That happened to be, the puppets happened to be in my living room, and that we happened to get a call from Apple. And I have to say, you know, I give Apple so much credit, because they were the ones who were like, you know, we really want to do this for the families that are watching Apple TV. We want to give them something, and what a great way to use the Fraggles message of community and connection, and, you know, everything. So
Absolutely. I agree. When you say the word connection, you know, whenever anything Fraggle Rock comes about, I always think back to, you know, Jim Henson saying like, I want to create a TV show that'll bring peace to the world. And like the world is in desperate need
yeah,
of that connection right now.
that's
And the
exactly right.
Fraggles are literally the best brands, the best, especially the best children's brand, to bring that message out. So yeah, it's absolutely perfect timing.
Yeah, it felt. It's funny because I didn't think about it till just now, but I think it felt, you know, uh, like a great responsibility to not only bring the characters back after so long in a brand new version, all five of them together talking and interacting and living in Fraggle Rock, but also just, you know, for these families, you know, that, because we were, you know, if you rewind back to, it was March, I guess, you know, when everything started, the conversation started, it was still so scary and new, and this idea of do we wear a mask, do we not wear a mask, and how long are we going to be inside, and, you know, washing our hands 150 times, like everything was just so new and scary. And I think there was something, there was like a relief that we felt, that we were getting to do something proactive and positive, that wasn't necessarily about the pandemic, but allowed us to show these loving, beloved characters, you know, also dealing with, well, how do we have fun when we're not all physically together? So it was, I think we felt a great responsibility is the word.
Yeah, for sure. So you had the six puppets, the Fraggle Five plus Traveling Matt in
Yes,
your
yes,
possession, um,
yes.
but not all of the performers got their hands on it. So you had to. Well, first of all, I'm curious, how did you get the puppets to the people? So Karen Prell and Donna Kimball, I believe, had their
Donna
Mocaber.
Kibble, yep,
Yep.
that's
Um,
right.
so did you literally just like drive up to their house and and like toss a duffel bag across the driveway?
Yeah. Yes. No. No. We were so lucky because our team was so great. So we with this amazing producer named Tim O'Brien, who figured out very quickly, like, okay, I need to figure out how during this, you know, international pandemic, how to get blue screens, ring lights, and, you know, every audio mics shipped to Karen Prell and Donna Kimball, microphones shipped to Frankie Cordero in Chicago, you know, like shipping stuff all over the place. Meanwhile, Apple sent us iPhone 11s, which was awesome. And they were basically like, here, we want this to look beautiful. So here's the newest, most gorgeous iPhone. Thank you, Apple. Sent us all iPhone 11s. And Tim really coordinated, you know, getting the puppets sent safely to everywhere. Everything had to be picked up and sterilized. And, you know, it's not like we're used to, where you could probably just pick up a puppet and put it in a box and ship it overnight. You know, everything took longer. Everything had to be sterilized. Everything had to be very safe, you know. So it was really that coordination that made that happen. And you know, I think Dave talked about this on another event, that, you know, he really wanted to be safe, and he felt uncomfortable having the puppets shipped to him, because at the time there was all that debate about how long, you know, COVID-19 lives on the surfaces of things, and it's dangerous, you know. So he's so trusting and wonderful, and I've known Dave for a while. He was lovely, and said, you know, I'm comfortable if you want to puppeteer, you know, Boober and Traveling Matt for me. So yeah, so it was a big logistical, you know, puzzle to figure out, and the turnaround was very quick, but everyone was so on board. I mean, it's funny, it's that Fraggly spirit of like, let's do it. Actually, very Muppet, you know, to your first question, spirit of, okay, let's all just put ourselves together. We're gonna make the show happen. Let's put on a show. Here we go, and everyone just made it work.
That's great. So okay, so you performed Gobo, obviously, and so you also did the
Yes,
puppetry for Wembley Boober and Traveling Matt. Uh,
that's right.
that means that you were performing characters that were originally that were originated by Jerry Nelson, Dave Goles, and Steve Whitmire. Did you feel
Yes,
like you
no
had to?
pressure,
No, none at all.
no pressure, no pressure
Did
at
you
all.
feel like you had to change the actual puppetry style for each character?
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, it's funny. I was saying to Hallie, like in the middle of production, I said, you know, because Fraggle Rock, and you know this, and I'm sure several of your listeners know this, but Fraggle Rock is the reason why I wanted to be a puppeteer. It was my childhood obsession, and I mean obsession. Like we didn't have a VCR to record back then, but like I rented every single video I could get from Blockbuster. I would audio record with my mom's giant old tape recorder every episode, listen to the audio and try to imitate. I would build Fraggle puppets. I would take my radio controlled cars and put Doozer action figures in there and build Doozer trails. I mean, I was so in love with the show. And so my nerd knowledge of the show goes beyond just knowing the episodes. It was studying Karen Prell and Jerry Nelson and Steve Whitmire and Dave Goles and Kathy Mullen and everyone, Richard Hunt. I mean, all of their puppetry styles in a weird way were very familiar to me, to the point where like I could almost watch an episode and figure out who was puppeteering which background Fraggle, or which one-shot character, just based on the way they were moving. So in some weird way, my brain stored that. And so when I had to, without any warning, pull that out, there was some familiarity. And it's hard. I mean, you're not just imitating a character, you're imitating someone's physical intuition and their movement. And some of it's the puppet. I mean, like Wembley is, I remember when you guys did like the unboxed episode of Topics, you guys, Raleigh was talking about how gorgeous that mouth is, and it's one big piece of rubber with that beautiful nose. So I mean, some of it's just like the way the puppet moves. But yeah, it was really, I did my best. It's hard, but I did my best to stay true to everyone's style. And especially Jerry's, I always feel like that's such an important part of Gobo, is getting that manipulation style right. And but it was definitely an unexpected. It was like almost like a puppetry like Indy 500. It was just kind of like, okay, we got around the track with Uber. All right, now we're gonna do Wembley. Go, But wow. I love that. I love that kind of challenge. Yeah, it was really fun.
Well, and it's got to be doubly difficult because I assume you're lip syncing to, or I don't know if you call it lip syncing, but you're syncing to someone else's audio track.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. Is so the way that we would shoot this is that once we had the script ready, we would have like a Zoom morning call on the day of production, our production day, mm-hmm. and we would get on the phone with all the performers. Would get on the phone, everyone from Henson, our director Jason, our sound designer, our lighting designer, everybody, and we basically meet and talk about, okay, how are we all going to do this? How are we all going to individually shoot this or do this? And then once we had a plan, Karen and Donna and I would go off and start to film our own character stuff. And then Dave and Frankie would usually work with Jason, our director, on their audio record, and they would record their audio, do it in takes, and then they'd have to, put that down, upload it, and then send that to me, and then I would lip sync to it. And the hard thing is usually when you're filling in for someone else's character, either you're getting a track of pre-records at least the night before, so you have 24 hours usually to listen to stuff and get it down, or you do the lines and then they match. So it was kind of, it was definitely a test of how quick can we be, that I'd get a batch of lines from Dave and then have 3 minutes to go over it in my head and just do it. So, wow. It was a lot of bad takes that will hopefully never see the light of day of me missing lip sync big time. But it was, again, it's funny. You just have to do it. You just kind of go, okay, this is the gig, this is the job, and this is what we got to do. Let's do it. You just, pull your boots up and go.
Yeah, for sure. Were you involved at all with the casting for Donna Kimball and Frankie Cordero as Moki and Wembley?
I was, yeah.
Yeah,
it was cool. It was really cool to be part of it. I'm so protective of the characters because I know their voice so well, and also because they mean so much to me. And I have to say that, Henson's been so wonderful because they're so trusting of that with me, and they support that that's the thing I appreciate so much about the Jim Henson Company, is the character integrity. They really believe in staying true to that as much as possible. And so it was very important to Lisa Henson and Hallie and myself and everybody that, we got as true to those characters as possible, and it was really kind of exciting to see Donna come in, and Donna is such an incredible voice match. If you've seen her work as Agra in The Dark Crystal Lake, which is mind-blowing.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's such a good Yeah, it's crazy, and such a good singer, and she's such a good puppeteer, and she just kind of came in and had that right away. And Frankie, who I've known forever, just walked in and had that Wembley. Besides having the great manipulation and the great energy, he just had that vulnerability for Wembley, which is so important. So it was definitely an honor to be able to be a part of that. And I definitely felt that, like, that Fraggle fan weight on my shoulder of, like, you are you are part of the next legacy of the show. Do not mess it up, because the fans they will be watching, because that's me too. I'm a fan too. So
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
it was cool to be part of that. It was cool to be part of that. Yeah.
I remember talking to you a few years ago after you had just started doing some Gobo stuff, and I don't think we asked you this on the record, so sorry, but we. I think we had asked you, are you, does this mean you're just Gobo now? Like, are you, like, officially recast as the official performer? And your answer was kind of like a non-committal, like, well, we'll see, because, at the time we didn't know if there would be more Fraggle stuff coming.
Yeah.
But now it's been years, and I know there hasn't been a whole lot of new Fraggle stuff, but, you did some stuff for the Hub channel, and you did some promotional stuff, and now you've got a series, and now you've got another series coming up, and it's like, that's pretty much it. You're just Gobo now. So I imagine that the pressure of casting new people as the Fraggles is like, well, that's you're not just casting for this one project. You're hopefully going to be casting for for
the future,
decades of Fraggle. Hopefully there's decades worth of Fraggle stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, and obviously, the series has been announced, which is so exciting. So that's the big, like, the biggest Fraggle thing, and the movie's still in development, so the movie will hopefully happen at some point.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, I think it's definitely there is a weight to that, and Fraggle Rock is such a funny animal, because part of the reason why that show worked so well, and the reason why those characters felt so real to all of us, and we all feel so into them, is because they were a family, they were a team, and they all complemented each other, not just as characters, but as performers. It was such a beautiful blend of styles and strengths and weaknesses and techniques and talents and everything. So I think that went into it too, was like, knowing Donna's a phenomenal singer, knowing Frankie can break your heart with the scene. It was like, okay, how is all that going to fit together with this new team? And I think the reason why I probably answered that as I did about Gobo is because, first of all, it's still mind-blowing to me. Like, I still don't really process it. Like, I can honestly say, like, and I'm not just saying this for the purposes of this interview, it's the truth. Like, you can ask my boyfriend, he was here when I was shooting stuff. Like, I would have the puppet on and I'd be like, doing Gobo. Like, it still doesn't really feel real. When I was a kid and I wanted to be a puppeteer for sure, but I wanted to be a puppeteer on Fraggle Rock. That was my dream. And back in the 80s and 90s, when I was growing up, in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, they didn't revive television series. That just didn't happen. It was like, once the show was done, it was done. So I just never thought it would happen. And I think I was scared to even say, everyone at Henson was so wonderful. And they're like, oh, back when I was starting to do things with Gobo, they'd be like, oh, you're doing such a great job. And I knew it wasn't where I wanted it to be. And I, being a theater actor, especially where, things happen, you get replaced in the next reading or you get replaced in the next production. I was like, I'm just going to be thankful for what this is right now and keep working really hard at trying to get better and better. And then hopefully I'll get to continue to do it. But now I can feel confident in saying that I get to be Gobo, and definitely having, Dave Goles and Karen Prell, give me that confidence that they feel like I'm doing a good job. That felt pretty good. So I'll take that in. When Dave Goles says that you're doing a good job, I was like, I will take that.
You must have worked a few times with Jerry Nelson, back on Sesame Street.
Oh yeah, yeah. Right? Yeah, my first few years on Sesame Street, I worked with him for quite a bit.
Did you pick up anything from him? Any notable puppetry lessons, anything like that you're taking on with you to performing Gobo?
It's funny. Jerry really was a sage. I mean, he kind of was I would say a combination of, like, Marjorie the Trash Sheep, Gobo, and Floyd all mixed into one. But also, like, we all are parts of our characters, but also Emmett Otter and Robin. Like, I mean, he was The physical image I have of Jerry was in our old studio at Sesame Street. We had this thing called the Muppet Room where all the Muppet performers would hang out. You know the Muppet Room. And the one, yeah, I've been there a couple times. And the one downstairs where we used to shoot downstairs stage at Kaufman Astoria was this little teeny like closet room. I mean, it was so teeny. And I just remember the image I get when I think about Jerry is Jerry sitting in the corner. He always sat in the same chair in the corner, usually with his guitar, usually dressed in black, and just like playing his guitar, and he'd maybe say a couple funny lines here or there to people, and or you know, and he was this kind of quiet presence, you know, and he wasn't someone who ever I can say was like, hey John, try it this way. He wasn't that kind of a teacher. He was more of a teacher, at least for me, he was more of a teacher by example. You know, the way the way he would, how professional he was on set, the way he would interact with directors and the camera folk, and he just had a really wonderful, gentle way about him. And I think the thing I remember most about him is music. There was just always, I feel like, you know, he was working on his album at the time, True Dreams, and he was just always, yeah, such a good album, right? He was always singing, always, I don't know, I mean, it's funny, I think that he was Gobo, you know, he was Gobo. He was a natural leader, you know, confident in a beautiful way, musical, awed by life. I mean, I think he was an amazing man, and I think that's what I've learned the most, you know, diving into the history of the show and getting to work to talk with Jocelyn Stevenson and some of the folks who created the show, is how much Gobo was Jerry and how much it was written for Jerry's strengths and skills. The way doing Gobo now is having to somehow tap into that part of Jerry, which is really, it's hard. I mean Jerry, that's just who he was. It was naturally who he was. So it's but that's what I think about when I think of Jerry. So I feel like I got to right hand for a couple of times, and he was just so patient and lovely, and you know, he'd be like, oh, maybe try it this way. I mean, he wasn't a big talker, I guess, is the Jerry that I got to know.
That's great. That's nice. I like that. So I mean, obviously you filmed everything for Fraggle Rock, Rock On in your home, but the second episode, The Cave of the Silly Creatures, we really got like a tour of your house. That's one for people who've watched, where Traveling Matt just kind of like wanders into somebody's house, and you know, I guess that's like classic Traveling Matt.
Yep.
That's what he used to do. So,
no boundaries.
Exactly. Yeah. And you also like make a cameo yourself in that one.
I do. Yeah, that episode is really funny to me because it was, you know, so we knew we wanted to do a Traveling Matt episode, and we knew we wanted to kind of, I think that one actually out of all 6 of them hints at the pandemic the most, in the sense of like, because you're seeing our world.
Right. Yeah.
And we just love, you know, we've been talking for a while about like, what would Traveling Matt think about the world now? You know, I remember we did kind of a test a few, I guess it was almost a year or so ago, where I took Traveling Matt out here in Hollywood and like shot just photos of him at the Apple Store, at the beach, on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and trying to find like at front of a Starbucks, like trying to find like contemporary things just to see like, and we realized there was like this treasure trove of new technology and new things that are our new normal as humans that he'd be fascinated by or confused by, really. Anyway, so we knew we wanted to put Traveling Matt into the shorts, and I was writing this. I was like, you know, Traveling Matt enters the Silly Creatures home, and I'm writing it down. And by the way, I love that I do. I don't know if people can see me or not on this, but like I'm like making like the pen writing thing when I say write, which I don't do. I type.
I noticed you like dipped your quill into the ink before you.
You're just missing me like putting it on my tongue.
Yep.
But I was typing, writing, and I, you know, everyone loved the idea of, oh, it's so funny that he thinks that the water thing in the refrigerator is a waterfall. Everyone loved the idea of he gets stuck in the cat tower and all this stuff. And then it occurs to me, because of course I was writing for what's in my apartment, but it occurs to me like, oh, I just shoot this like by myself essentially. My boyfriend, thank God, was helping me, but like, you know, there's no crew, there's no props master. Oh, I did do that. Like, you know, and it was a lot to do in one day, but then it just became fun. But it was the hardest thing we shot, because it was all real. It all had to work. It all had to be, you know, it was about the losing light. At one point I was like, oh my, I was like, panicked calling our producer Tim, being like, I can't shoot this today because we're losing light and the sun's setting and it's not working. He's like, okay, shoot in the morning. Like, you know, there was so much, so many things you just don't deal with usually, and you don't have to worry about as a performer. But it was really fun. I'm most proud of the fact that our puppy, let's see, now he's 10 months old. At the time he was like 9 months or a little less. And, you know, still learning many things. I was so unbelievably proud when he nailed the kissing traveling mat thing on the nose every single time. I was like, we're putting this dog in show business. Like, I did not expect that to work out. I thought that would be the thing that would take forever, but it was one of the easiest things he did. So.
Well, and thank God he didn't bite. When you were filming outside with Traveling Matt, did you get like a lot of weird looks from your neighbors?
I did, and you know what's funny is it was that funny thing people do where they figure something out and they recognize. I guess this must be like what a celebrity feels like. They would like see him, and you know, a lot of people like on walks and stuff like that with their husbands or wives or whatever, and you'd see them kind of, especially if you're the right age group to have grown up with Fraggle Rock, you'd see them kind of like look over and acknowledge and then like look back at their husband or wife and say something and then look back and then both try to be really cool but keep looking back. And so that was kind of fun. It was just, you know, and the most fun thing was I have a neighbor across the street who I had never met before, but one of the episodes I used the front of their apartment complex as the background for Traveling Matt. And he came out as I was filming, and usually Devin, my partner, was with me helping me film, but he had to run inside to grab something. So literally it was just, and I realize now like how bizarre this must have looked, but it's just like me with my iPhone 11 and my tripod and like holding Traveling Matt under my arm with like the other phone that has like Dave Goles' line deliveries on it. Like, what a weird visual in the middle of this pandemic. There's this guy hanging out inside of your apartment complex with a puppet under his hand. And he was like, hello. I was like, hi. And he was like, are you John Tartaglia?
Oh.
And I was like, yes. He's like, and turns out he listens to my radio show on Sirius
great.
XM.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. But I'm holding a puppet and it was bizarre. And then he's like, is that Traveling? Yeah, it's like, yes, it is. And he's like, okay. Like, he was trying not to dig in and you know, ask too much, but he was also, what's happening in front of my apartment building right now in the middle of this, you know, pandemic? But yeah, a lot of people would recognize him, and I love that. I love seeing people kind of do like their triple takes. Like, is that Traveling Matt? Yeah,
that's great. I also have to assume, like, I mean, you're in LA, so there must be people doing weird stuff outside literally all the time.
I guess so. I guess that's probably true. It's probably not that abnormal, but to me, it is weird that I'm, you know, like,
100%,
it's still that nerdy kid who wanted to be a puppeteer who like felt like he needed to still be cool in high school. There's a little bit of that like that came out. Like, I kind of relived those feelings of like the loser with the puppet on his hand. Yeah. So I but then I was like, you know what? I'm proud. I'm Traveling Matt on my hand. I'm gonna live this dream.
I mean, this is a very different kind of story, but my wife is an actor, and she was doing a photo shoot. It was in our neighborhood. This is obviously before.
Okay.
But it was in our neighborhood, and for the shoot, she had to go basically in front of a brick wall outdoors.
Okay.
And I'm gonna overly simplify it, but she had basically poured blood or what looked like blood on her.
Oh my
and
gosh.
You know, the photos look amazing, but then they're like in the middle of Brooklyn on a street, and there's not like she can jump in the shower, so she just had to walk home covered in blood, and just assuming like people are gonna give me weird looks, it's gonna be a whole thing, and nobody batted an eye at her because it's New York and there's,
you know what, all
everywhere.
You had to say was New York.
Yeah.
It was
exactly.
New York.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, it's like Rizzo and the Muppets Take My Hand. It's New York. I mean,
yeah,
it's so true.
We say that all the time, literally every day. So speaking of celebrity, you got to write some celebrities into these episodes, which is super exciting. But was it weird for you, because we've never seen celebrities interact with the Fraggle Rock characters? You're kind of, you know, obviously you had to invent a whole way to incorporate them into the story, but also just kind of justify their existence in a franchise that's never had that before. So was that weird? Was that challenging for you?
It was, and it was again, you know, because there's so much respect for the canon and for, you know, what's come before. I mean, you know, something that I never realized you know, as a kid, but now looking back once Dave and Karen mentioned it, and I was like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. Is the fact that, you know, the Fraggles, even back in the day, in the heyday of the series when it was on, never did publicity. You never saw Red or Gobo or Wembley on the Today Show or, you know, on the Tonight Show or whatever. You know, it was like there was always that true to the idea that this is a magical world, that it's separate, that, you know, they really stay true that every now and then you'd see Traveling Matt appear somewhere.
Yeah, I can think of like 2 or 3 examples, maybe that.
Very rare. And I think one of them is like, I think Cotterpin even shows up like
yep.
Matt, which is really kind of
yeah.
fun.
And even that with Traveling Matt and Cotterpin, I think we're thinking of the same one. I want to say, I mean, I'm doing this without double checking, but I want to say that was from like the early 90s. I feel like that was like long
It was when the new VHSs came out.
Right. And that was it. Yeah.
And so it's look at me. I'm like, actually, it was 1993. But the nerd kicked in. But yeah, it was so rare. And so we talked a lot about that, about, you know, how do we look, you know, and you want celebrities involved because it obviously brings so much awareness to it. And what is really amazing about Fraggle Rock is the unbelievable amount of celebrities who love the show, especially musical celebrities. It's such I think all musicians of a certain age and on know Fraggle Rock and are like, that's the show. They love that show. So it was more about figuring out how to stay true to the characters and the story. And that's kind of where the idea of the Doozer Tube came up, was, well, you know, we wanted some way to suggest what you know, video conferencing is nowadays in a very fraggly way that doesn't break the rules. So that's why I felt like the Doozers could do that, because the Doozers are so inventive and they are more technically driven or technologically driven than the Fraggles are. And then it was like, well, wait a minute, if we have this Doozer Tube and we're going off the idea that it's more of a sound thing as opposed to just a visual thing, then they can have conversations with silly creatures and have no idea that they're silly creatures. And all of a sudden it felt like, oh, we can kind of keep that world still very true. And I also love that the magic, you know, I think one of the most magical episodes in the entire, you know, series is when Doc finally meets Gobo. Mm-hmm. And that human Fraggle connection. Like, I mean, I still get goosebumps thinking about that moment. And so, you know, we couldn't do that obviously because we don't have 96 episodes worth of time to develop that. But we were like, well, what if we, you know, had a moment where Gobo and Wembley realized they're talking to a silly creature? Like that's the most exciting thing in the world to a Fraggle, right? That you're breaking the barrier. It'd be like us talking to an alien. You know, it's the coolest thing in the world. So we just, you know, and these are shorts. There's not a whole lot of time to get a lot of story in there, but it felt like that was the best way to involve the celebrities, keeping them the celebrities, keeping the Fraggles in their world. There's still a connection, which is very true to the series, that they're still finding a way to connect, even though they're apart, but not doing something where like all of a sudden you see Common hanging in the caves with Gobo. Like right. that just would have been weird, you know, yeah. And that's just not true to the show. So there was a lot of discussion though about like, how do we do this within the realm of the world, you know, and stay true to it.
Yeah, and it does feel to me like, you know, like you say, you know, there's this amazing story arc that from this original series that ends with Gobo and Doc having this really touching and memorable moment. But it's also almost like a continuation of, you know, now that they know that silly creatures, you know, are out there, they've acknowledged it, they've interacted with them, and also, you know, a lot of time has passed, you know, at least for us it has, and on our end, technology has changed a bit. It's like what is the next step in the, you know, the silly creature Fraggle connection? And, you know, it makes sense. Well, it's like a Doozer Tube.
Yeah, and it's funny because I you know, I read the Tough Pigs forum, and I forget, someone was like, you know, this would never have happened. The celebrities would have never connected. And you know what I come from is again, I'm a big believer in protecting canon, a big believer in staying true to characters. I think that's vital. I think that's when the most successful work comes, is when you stay true to the character. But you know, if you do go off of the end of Fraggle Rock, the original series, they did realize that there were other ways to get into, you know, outer space, and they did kind of, all 5 of them brave that connection. You know, if you remember that last wonderful episode with Doc in the desert, you know, they all 5 of them come through the hole and end with Sprocket and Doc. So we kind of were like, okay, so that it's not out of the world that Red would talk to a silly creature, you know. And again, we didn't want to put them in a physical place. I mean, also because obviously the message of this series was that you can be apart and still connect. But you know, I got really excited as we were getting to the finale of like, how would Red play rock hockey over essentially Zoom, or how would how would Moki do what techniques would Moki share in her Zen practices with Ziggy Marley? Like, it was fun to think about, like, what are the wackiest things we could put these characters in, and how can we show the Fraggle world to the silly creatures? So it felt, I'm proud that we were able to still stay true to what came before, but also kind of expand a little bit, because you have to, but yeah, so it was, and I just want to say really quickly, all of those celebrities were like geeking out. Like Tiffany Haddish, I'm sure that there's behind the scenes footage somewhere that will surface at some point, but like Tiffany Haddish lost her mind talking to Red and Gobo. Like, it was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And she came in with like her red pigtails, and she was like, I'm talking to Red Fraggle! Like, she was losing her mind. And it was so wonderful to see that. And Alanis Morissette, who I was the biggest fan of growing up, like, I geeked out about working with Alanis Morissette.
Oh, I bet.
I had Gobo. Oh my gosh. I had Gobo on, and her kids were there, and I was talking to her kids, and she was getting all emotional. She's like, I'm talking to Fraggles. Like, I was like, I know. Like, it's really wonderful. Like, you just to see these icons, these huge stars, just be reduced down to like their 8-year-old self watching the Fraggles. It was really cool.
I mean, you and I see that all the time whenever there's a Muppet from any of the big franchises. Like, people just, I mean, like it's like that piece of their brain, from 20, 30 years ago, just kind of shoots from the back of their head to the front, and they just become children again. It's always 100%.
Well, you know why? Because I really believe this, because people say, well, why puppets, right? People always ask this question, why puppets? Mm-hmm. And I always say, because I think it's the last magic that exists that you can't actually formulate why. Like, there's just something about puppetry that is primal, because it's not animated, and it's not a special effect, and it's not a layer. It's not it's a physical thing that's there, like picking up Gobo, the puppet. It is Gobo. Like, it is him. It is the puppet that I stared at as a child, and now he's physically in front of me. And I think it's the same thing as adults. Like, we, when I'm sure you've seen it a million times, when someone meets Big Bird, or someone meets Ernie or Cookie Monster, it's physically, they are real. They may not be humans, they may not be live flesh and blood creatures, but they're real in the sense that they physically exist, and they're something that we lock away and we trust. And so, I don't know, it's a really unexplainable thing that I think it's magic, is what it is.
It is magic, and you're 100% right. I mean, when we were kids, when there wasn't a lot of animated stuff specifically for made for preschoolers. I was a big fan of all the different puppet shows, obviously, especially Sesame Street. But yeah, there's something about the fact that I could walk out my door and I could run into this character. Like, I could go to an event and they could be there and they could talk to me.
Yeah,
you can't get that from Dora the Explorer or Curious George or whatever it is. I don't know. It's something that we've been talking a lot about, specifically with Sesame Street doing their all the great work that they're doing right now in quarantine, because those preschool brands can't put that content out there. They can't be as timely, they can't be as personal. But Sesame Street, because they're physical puppets, because all we got to do, I'm making this simpler than it really is, but all we got to do is put the puppet on your hand, put it in front of the camera, have him say something.
No, it's true.
Get that on YouTube 20 minutes later.
I mean, that's basically that's exactly right. And that's why we were able to turn these Fraggle Rock shorts around so quickly. And, I remember, it's funny, I remember going to Disney World when I was like, I think it was in 1991. So I'm scared. I don't know, I was 10 or 11, but I remember it was when Muppet Vision 3D had just opened. Mm-hmm. And it was like the first thing I wanted to see, besides like the Country Bear Jamboree, because I love the Country Bears. We could do a whole other podcast about the Country Bears. But I was so excited to see Muppet Vision 3D, and I think I remember sitting there just in awe of I think I saw it like 4 times in a row, because I felt like I was there with the Muppets. Now, obviously, the majority of that is on a screen, but the Statler Waldorf animatronic and the Bean, but they look exactly like the puppets, and they move the way the puppets do. So it was like, to your point, like, I think that's why Jim wanted to do animatronic versions of the characters, that you're so excited about the parks for that reason, because you wouldn't have to how do you take this animated character and make it look, as an animatronic? The puppets they just work. You just, instead of a hand being inside, it's a robot arm. It's amazing how. So I don't know. I guess that you just made me think about that. About like that first time you're around the Henson characters, whether they're animatronic or they're live or whatever. It's like, it is them, it's a really cool thing.
It really is. And I think that's why, thinking about Disney World now, the animated characters, the Disney characters actually lend themselves relatively well to being like costume characters, because kids and adults, want to see like, oh, it's Mickey Mouse and they're here with me. But it doesn't work the other way around.
Yes.
You can't take a physical character and turn them into an animated one to make it more interesting or cheap or to do, crazier stuff on in their TV show or whatever it is, because you took something that was so special and you kind of, I don't know, you de-homogenized it. I'm probably not using that term right, but you get the clue.
We'll go with it.
Yeah, sure.
It's true. There's something about wanting things to be right in front of you, and it's and knowing that you could. It's like Yoda, like knowing that Mark Hamill was actually holding Yoda. There's something, or that your eye knows that, and it's organic, and you just the difference between that and when it's just a flat animated thing. You just do.
You're absolutely right. That's what happened. They did those, some of those prequel movies with Yoda, and they made him CG, and nobody cared. But then they did
you just don't care,
Yoda on The Mandalorian, and I know that they were talking about like, should we animate it? Should we do the puppets? And then obviously they ended up using the puppet, and that's, man, if that would have been a CG character, we wouldn't be talking about Baby Yoda right now. I'll tell you that.
I think so, and I think there is something. There's it's like the uncanny valley thing. There's a primal thing where even if you can't put your finger on it, that it's not quite right, not quite real. And I think that we pick up on that.
Yeah, totally. You're totally right. So I imagine that you can't tell us a whole lot about the upcoming Fraggle Rock series. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
Okay.
A Gorg might come and crush me if I tell you too much, but yeah.
All right, so I'm trying to think of what I can even ask you, because assuming that you didn't really tease us, I assume that you are hoping that we will get Doozers and Gorgs for the new show.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
That's good to know.
And it is. I know that there were some questions out there about, it is puppets. It is live action. It's puppets. It will be. You will see the Fraggles as you've known them before. It's not going to be a world of animation or CG Fraggles or things like that. It'll be the puppets as you know them, the characters as you know them.
That's great. Do you think that you're going to have to start production while you're still in quarantine, or do you think this is something that we're just going to wait until you can get all the performers in one room at the same time?
Well, yeah, and I mean, our goal is that we will be able to shoot all together in a studio setting the way that the show needs to be. For the series, we want to go back down into Fraggle Rock, and we want to be in those caves in that world. So, our hope with the way that we're tracking production is that it will be able to shoot all together. We'll be able to shoot. Hopefully way past quarantine is the hope. But we started pre-production development, and we're just kind of getting going, and it's surreal. It's really surreal.
Oh,
it's
I bet it is.
Super surreal.
Yeah. Do you are you
surreal.
Expecting like 22-minute episodes, or are you going to keep it short form?
They will be half-hour episodes. Right. I think I can say that. And yeah, so it will, and it will be. There'll be epic adventures the way that the original series was. It won't be, I should say this, I guess it won't be a different storytelling type. It won't be like the shorts which were to camera and were very, they were very much designed for that purpose.
Yeah, of course.
They'll be much more they'll be story based like the original.
Right. Well, I have a million questions about the show, and I won't even bother to get a no comment.
It kills me because I want that the nerd, like the puppet nerd in me and the fan wants to tell you everything, and I'm like sitting here, I can feel like Nicole at Henson right now, who's not even on the call. I can feel her just being like, "What are you doing?"
No, I totally understand it. I'm going to play ball for now, but just so you know that I am very excited. Yes, as excited as you are to tell me things, like I'm like vibrating with the fact that
I'm hoping very much so that, and we'll have to figure this out, but I'm hoping when we're in production that you'll be able to come to the set and get to see stuff, and we can, maybe give you guys a little secret behind the scenes tour. Because I think every puppet fan, even if you don't know Fraggle Rock that well, I feel like every Henson puppet fan, there's something about, there's so few, first class premium puppet series being made. And this show to me, took everything that Jim learned from the Muppet Show, everything Jim learned from the Muppet movie, from Dark Crystal, from Emmett Otter, from all that glorious production, and kind of filtered it all into one half-hour television series. And like just breaking things down now and going back and going through the archives and going through stuff, you're like, oh my gosh, like it's amazing the depth of care and commitment and I don't even know the word. I guess commitment that went into making this show feel more than just a show. I mean, it was a world. They created a world, and I mean, there's stuff in the archives that the geek in me wishes I could share with you, but like where I'm like, they took the time to make a list about this. Like, it's incredible. Like the amount of just love, I guess, that was put into the show and care to make it feel like a world. And I think that's why we all are still talking about it, and why we can still watch an episode and go, did you see the doozers in the background? And which I'll give you one fun fact. We had a meeting with a lot of the original creators, and we had some of the guys who worked on the doozers. And they were talking about the fact that they would just create storylines for the doozers in the background, that weren't in the script, but they would just hook up the doozers to be building something, and then they actually tracked the shot, the production shot, so that they would, as the episode went on, you'd see more and more of something being built, or you'd see, a background Fraggle destroying it by accident or something like that. I mean, there's so much depth and thought that went into creating a community and a world, and that's why I think it feels so rich. And so we're definitely like, okay, just to start, we have to honor that level of commitment. The show has to live up to that.
Yeah, the bar is very high for you.
The bar is very high. So I probably won't sleep for the next 2 years of my life. So if you interview me again in 2 years and I have the Starbucks coffee and it's like giant, more than a venti, you'll know why.
No, that's great. Well, I'm glad that you're working on this. I mean, someone who really feels passionate about this. And again, it was a TV show that was designed to bring peace to the world, and we need it now more than ever. And, maybe this time it'll work.
Well, you know what? It's really cool. I think Karen Prowl and I were talking about this recently, that, who could have thought in the 80s that something like the true internet would exist, or that, there would be the ability to literally upload something and have it with the press of a button literally instantly be across the world.
Yeah. And
that was the hope with the show, was that it would help you learn to be a better part of society, a better part of the world. And now the fact that, you have Apple, who is literally all over the world, and can instantly put the show on the service and be accessible all over the world. I think that is so exciting, and it so honors, I think, what Jim's original hope for the show was. So I feel even more, I feel like, when people say why now, besides the fact that we need Fraggle Rock, like you just said, because we're everything that we're dealing with in this world right now, we need those messages, and we need those characters, and we need that reminder of how we should be. I also think that the technology exists now, and the connection exists now that we didn't have globally back then necessarily. So I feel like it's like that part of it, which I hadn't really thought about till recently. I was like, wow, like who would have thought in 1982 that this many years later, we'd be able to just go bloop and reach every single country instantly. I mean, that's just powerful.
You're right. It's like Jim Henson knew. He knew that, that wasn't the technology wasn't there yet, but that's what he wanted.
Wayne, you've seen that great video about Jim Henson invented YouTube. You've seen that that amazing video. Like, I'm like, yep, he probably did. Like, yeah. I mean, I think there was something. He was such a visionary. I think he always was 20 steps ahead above everybody else. And that's when people say, like, how would Jim feel about having CG characters? I'm like, he did it. I mean, Waldo was a CG character, know. So I think he was always wanting to use technology and wanting to use advancements in tech to tell stories, and that's what we get to do now with this new series. And I'm just like mind blown that we're able to do that. It's super cool, but it is, yes, a great responsibility. Yes. So it's taken very seriously.
Well, good luck. I'm jealous that you get to work on the show, but at the same time, I'm not jealous of the fact that you do have a lot of pressure and a lot of fans who are looking at you right now.
Listen, like I said, if you told 7-year-old Johnny that his dream would come true at 42 years old, and somehow it would kind of start in the again, like in his bedroom.
Yeah,
Muppets,
right.
the actual Muppets. No, it's very full circle. And so I feel like without being cheesy or without being dramatic, like I feel like my entire career was preparing me for this opportunity. So I feel like I finally get to use all that nerd knowledge that I used to like sit in the sidelines of Henson and be like, actually, that was in episode 73 when Tosh Fraggle, like now I get to actually be like, there's a character named Tosh Fraggle. Like, it's exciting to finally use that childhood obsessive knowledge.
I totally hear you. That's every day on Topics for me.
There you go.
Finally a use for all this garbage in my head. So does this mean that you're going to be playing more Fraggle music on your Sirius XM show now to promote the brand?
I should, right? Yeah. I'm sure they I feel like my boss at Sirius might be like, I'm curious, what Broadway show is The Rock Goes On from? I'd be like, but I know, right?
You say that, but when I was a kid, there was every Sunday my parents would listen to this Broadway, it was like basically a local channel that played Broadway music for 4 hours. And when I was really young, I would call to make a request, and every time I would call and just ask for Muppet songs. And I'm sure they got really sick of me, but they would just they considered.
I love you for that.
They considered like songs from the soundtracks as Broadway because they are. There's no difference between a song from the Muppet.
Yeah.
And, a song from Evita or whatever.
Those Fraggle songs, they really do. I mean, they're incredible, and they were written that way too, right? They were written poetically. The lyrics are poetic, and yes, of course, you hear character voices and you hear certain things that might tip you off that it's a kids show song, but. I mean, honestly, you're right. Like some of those beautiful Moki ballads and stuff like that, like they could be Broadway songs. Why not?
Sure,
you're right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Changing the world. That's it. This Sunday, I'm putting it on.
All right, we're all gonna listen to Sunday Fun Day. We're gonna hear you play some Fraggle tunes. You promise. So
apparently, I've locked myself in now.
So, are there any other projects that you're working on that you want to mention, whether you're doing in quarantine or otherwise, or is Fraggle Rock just taking up your entire life?
Well, it's really mostly Fraggle Rock now. I was supposed to do some theater pieces, but of course, with the quarantine, that's all kind of been pushed to the side. But there's some other really, I have to say, without being too much of a tease, like there's it's such a good time to be a Henson fan right now. There's so much stuff that's coming down the pipeline, and there's so many great things in the works, and I feel like, I'm so lucky to be part of some of that and get to hear what's going on, and I feel like it's a good time. Let's put it that way. It's a good time to be a Henson fan. So okay. I'm really excited. Yeah.
Good tease. Good tease.
Excited. Right? It's a good tease.
Great. Well, John, thank you so much for doing this. It was eye-opening. I would love talking about Fraggle Rock with you for all this time. I'm looking forward to talking more about Fraggle Rock with you as time goes on.
Hopefully next time on the set. Hopefully you'll be there on the set.
Okay, we'll make that happen. I'm gonna come out to LA.
Make it happen.
In LA. I'm gonna come out just so we can hang out in the Rock.
Done and done. And big love to all the Tough Picks fans out there. Thank you guys for keeping the magic alive and for being care so much about the characters and the company and everything. I mean, it is we're very thankful, and it's noticed. It really is. So thank you to everybody out there.
Terrific. Thank you.
15 Seconds to Curtain is hosted and produced by Joe Hennis.
Edited by Jared Fairclough.
Logo artwork by Dave Haltine and Jay Fosgate.
Written by Gags Beasley and the Hat Rack.
Theme music by Stacey Rosen.
A Muppet Fan podcast brought to you by toughpigs.com.